What's going on, people, and welcome to Nerds of the Round Table, where we talk about Marvel, and more Marvel. I am Snalez. I am here with J-Dog.
What's going on, everyone? Big episode here of Loki. Got lots of suspenseful and twists, and ready to talk about it.
I'm ready to talk about it too. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Marvel, more Marvel, or Nerds of the Round Table. That's Knerds, like Knights. But like Jimmy said, we're gonna talk about episode 4, Loki. Episode 4. So like this episode started off so cool. I like how we got to see J-Dog, like the finale, like that finale sequence from last season. This time around in this season, while the multiverse is going crazy. What do you think about like everything is like kind of like the background is like all just multiverse, whereas before you saw like this, it was like a rainbow wall almost, I think.
You're talking about like the opening sequence where they like zoom in on like the timeline and such?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah. And that one was all it just like looked chaotic, way more chaotic this time. Like you're seeing it, the ramifications of everything.
Yeah, you could see just like how much more crazy and like infinite it is compared to what we've kind of seen. We've seen big pics of it, but it really puts into perspective, and then zooms all the way in on He Who Remains His Castle.
Yeah. And did you notice that like some of the branches in there, like it kind of looked like some of the dead branches, like their like essence or their aura was still like lingering. So like you have like the branches that are branching off and like continuing to go, and you have like the dead branches also that like are sitting there dead, but like have all this like all the dead energy around it too.
Yeah,
I can see like
that? They're kind of red and stuff, and
yeah, it's like the dead branches are kind of red and like have the. I thought that was pretty dope, or at least I think that's what's going on. Like that's how I interpreted it. It's just a mess, It's just it's like a visual representation to show like how messy it is. But yeah, so like Miss Minutes finally tells us the big secret of what's been going on with Ravonna in relation to He Who Remains. And it turns out that she was the general during the multiversal war, which was a crazy revelation. It also makes sense, I would say. And at the same time, she was also like right next to him and promised like a seat at the throne that he then went back on. And so like my thing is, do you think that like, so do you think this is after TVA has been made, and then like so this is like after the TVA has just been formed and made, and then like they're at the end of time, and then she's going back to like check out the TVA, and then he's just like never ever goes back, or like, because there was a point in time where the TVA was ruled by him. I'm just trying to figure out if there's a point in time that the TVA was ruled by him.
Well, because like isn't how
it was the TVA, his version of his warriors,
Right.
Like,
that's what I'm thinking.
His warriors?
That's like the general. She was the general of the TVA, which was like the army. And then
which was his army.
I think this is just like it's trying to imply like it's the very end of the TVA timeline, because there's like kind of two timelines. There's the sacred timeline and all those branches, and then there's like the time that TVA goes through. And so this is like after Sylvie stabbed him, after like however many months or whatever, because he's kind of decayed and shit. But
yeah.
And then it looks like what we're seeing with the branches, like this is like about to be where it explodes at the TVA part 2. So I feel like
Yeah. It's so confusing. Because like here's the thing. Like the branches are branching right next. So like my question has always been the loom, right? The loom's creating the branches by sucking in the raw time and putting it out, right? So like is the TVA, I'm just trying to figure out how in real time at the end of time everything's going crazy. Is it because time is all happening at once? Is that why? Because it's going crazy at the end of time and it's going crazy at the TVA all at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like they're all technically happening at the same time, but then the big situations and changes happen, then that can still just be in one moment, and then still change everything else. I don't know. Timey-wimey nonsense.
I mean, what I mean, nonsense. But yeah, so I guess He Who Remains wipes everybody's mind, and then from there, TVA 2.0 starts. Ran by the time, the what are they called? The time lizards, whatever those people were. Okay, so Victor Timely finally gets to go to the TVA. We get to see some of his interests and we get to see like his how he deals with seeing like his face on a wall, for instance.
Yeah.
And several of his faces, and how he like looks at that, and it just seemed, I don't know. His emotions in that moment must have been heavy.
Yeah. I wonder, like, it seems like he's very interested, but that, I don't know, it seemed a little like disconnected, because like he sees his own face, but like this is just what he's read about in that handbook. It's like this very initial Kang getting eyes on what the later Kang has already built. So it's like, oh wow.
Yeah. Oh, crazy. And then like he's like later he thinks about it and he's like, wait, so am I the creator of the TVA? Or will I have created it? Or did I create it? Or will I create it? He's like asking himself all the right questions. Like, how does that work?
Did
I create it? Will I create it? Or have I created it already?
I'm definitely thinking we're getting like red herringed here with Victor Timely. Like, I feel like he might have been like a complete goose chase. Like, he might not actually be the He Who Remains. It might just be a different Kang that he was like trying to, like a different variant that he's trying to convince us was the original He Who Remains, or I don't know. I'm still not convinced because of the reason of the end of the episode, with the linguini Victor. But
dude, I like how fascinated, and I'm sure everybody else did, how fascinated he was that there was a hot cocoa machine. Like, I guess, like, what do you mean?
That would be game breaking.
I'd be wondering too. I'd be like, what are you talking about? Right? Like, plus, like, how good it would taste if you'd never tasted it. Also, why did that other guy act like he had never tasted that before?
Right.
He was actually like, goodness gracious, this cocoa is good. Like he never,
I've seen those theories about how there might be more to the pie in the hot cocoa, though. Like,
yeah.
Some of the other YouTubers are all, they got their crazy theories, but I don't know. Some of them make sense.
Well, I mean, there was the comment about how, I think it was in season 1, where Mobius was like, have you never had candy? To Loki, and he was like, yeah, I've had candy, like fruit and like grapes and he just starts listing fruits. And he's like, well, that's not candy. Maybe you need to have some candy and then you feel better. And then it turns out that, like, I don't know, the only things we've seen him eating in the TVA is like a piece of pie and like now some cocoa. So
They're getting brainwashed through the food.
whoa. um right. Like, but also I just remembered that that guy probably had never been all the way downstairs before because
Oh, that's true.
because why would he go all the way downstairs? And then like I loved how like they both like Victor Timely was such a fan of Ouroboros, and Ouroboros learned all he knew from Victor Timely. And that was just, they wanted each other's autographs. It was awesome.
That's where that whole theory about, like I was saying, like where there's another Kang pulling all the strings, because like if
Yeah.
Victor taught Ouroboros, then is this Victor not the one who would have created it? Then like is there a different Victor Timely that is the actual one, and this is like, because then also Ouroboros said he was taught by Victor Timely all he knows,
Yeah.
like physically, like in person taught, I'm guessing. So like wouldn't OB like know what Victor Timely looks like, and so maybe that looks like Kang, you know, and like this is like a different Victor Timely, or I don't know. I'm just, you know, theories are going crazy.
Yeah. And then, but like also at the same time, if OB's memory has never been wiped, how, and it's been eons, right? He's gotta have lost
That's true.
tons of memories, which is why he had no idea possibly that like Loki had visited him until like later
And they
on
like
in the
don't sleep in the
conversation.
TVAs, so
Yeah, and he doesn't sleep, so it could be possible that it's just he's lived for so long and been awake for so long that all his memories are messed up, so it's hard to take. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But what you talking about? Oh, yeah. No, I totally agree with you on the fact that this is all being written possibly by somebody.
yeah, it doesn't seem like everything's too convenient, and there'll
It
be some
does.
big reveal next episode.
It also seems like if He Who Remains had the plan, why does He Who Remains have a plan? I thought he was gonna just let the timelines branch. You know what I mean?
Right.
He was like, kill me, and then we'll let the timeline, then the timelines will branch, and then a whole bunch of me will show up, and then X, Y, and Z will happen. Why didn't he just let it do what it does then? If he didn't want anything to happen, why is he interfering by using Miss Minutes to like do like make Victor Timely a person to come back into the TVA? Is it because is it just because that he knew that they were gonna need him to help? But no, because they didn't even fix it.
Right, yeah, like they got him all and they got him scanned so the door could open, but then like
Yeah,
dies
and then he
immediately.
ran out there, and then it was just like, oh, spoiler alert, my bad, our bad. We were gonna do that later, but you know, sometimes things happen. But yeah, no, I totally agree. I don't understand. I don't understand it. So there's got to be something afoot. We'll find out this week, I hope. Okay, so yeah. Speaking of which, was Victor a distraction, do you think?
To
From
some
whoever
degree.
is actually doing whatever.
I feel like
Yeah.
maybe what could have been this whole thing is that Victor Timely, in some way, shape, or form, was involved in the TVA before, and that he was necessary for it to get written with Ouroboros and all that. But maybe we're like one step away, and now it's branching off into the He Who Remains, or you know whoever else, strategy, and so that's why he died there. Like he wasn't supposed to die. The loom was supposed to work. So maybe this is where it really starts
Maybe.
branching off. But I don't know. We haven't seen enough.
Right. And also, like, there's the constant, like, we haven't seen enough, and we may find this out later, but there's the constant thought about the fact that He Who Remains said, I met countless versions of me, all who came from the 31st century, and all who found out time travel and shared their knowledge and whatever. Why is Victor this variant from not the 31st?
Yeah,
But,
so that was the other thing that led me
yeah,
towards it's not the real Kang or whatever, because like from all we know from comics is Kang is from the future, and then that's why
yeah,
he has all the tech and stuff, and they kind of hint at that because like so like Victor wasn't able to recreate all the handbook stuff because he didn't have the technology or like materials from the 1890s, and so like that makes me think that maybe Victor is just a red herring and that it's all just smoke and mirrors.
yeah, totally, dude. The story is so good. Yeah, and I just want to point out that, like, there's also the possibility that like, Victor Timely is a quote unquote Kang from a different time period, because there's like, you know what I mean, like the Stone Age
Right.
Avengers, there's the
Ramatut.
like the 1600 Avengers, there's the 2099 and 3099 Avengers, like, they're not
Okay.
all from the same time, and they're not all necessarily the same person,
Right.
because those people are obviously, like, don't look like what they would look like in modern day,
Mm-hmm.
like, it's not like Steve Rogers is the same face as Steve Rogers from the 1600s or whatever, like, but so, I mean, there's, like, all kinds of possibilities is all I'm trying to say. While B-15 and dang it, I don't know what this lady's name is, but the War Room lady
Docs.
that's in the what?
Doc, the Scottish lady.
No, the other lady, the one that
Oh, yeah,
sided
in
with
the
B-15
chair.
and everybody and was like, stop pruning.
Yeah, I don't remember her name. Sorry.
I can't remember her name either. But while they're talking at the beginning of the conversation, it just zooms in to the chaos that is happening with the time loom, and just, like, kind of like, it's like, oh, this part of the conversation is not too important, so just look over here
Yeah.
really quick at what's going on and notice how everything's in red and getting redder. It's just like, oh yeah, I see that. But I just thought it was interesting that they were just like, focus on this for a second, just to, like, build that suspense. I thought it was really cool and really interesting, and made. I mean, I know B-15 is an important character, but it, like, really solidified in me that B-15 is an important character when this lady said to her, "Your words changed me." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's just powerful. That means that person. I don't know. She had a very she had a very impactful speech during that war room talk that they had, where it was like, she changed this woman's mind. So I just wanted to, like, cover, like, we talked about I hear you laughing, don't laugh. She's laughing at me in the other room.
What?
Great. I just heard Gracie laughing at me in the other room. So I just wanted to explain what the word Ouroboros means or represents, and it has been explained. It's actually what Ouroboros says in the episode when they come into contact, when Ouroboros and Victor come into contact with each other, and he's like, and they're confused about who taught who what, because Victor taught OB and OB learned from Victor's book. Or, I mean, I'm sorry. And Victor learned from OB's book. So Ouroboros is what is a snake eating its own tail, meaning that like it represents like infinity, you know.
Yeah, like the story leads the beginning to the end, and then it restarts, sort of thing.
Exactly. It's kind of like if you go back. It's like if you go back in time, and like you gave yourself a pencil. And you needed that pencil in order to write your essay, in order to get an A in math and math. Write your essay to get an A in math. Yes. No. Write your essay to get an A in like an English paper. And then like that sets you down the path to becoming like
the physicist who makes time travel, and then
or something like like something crazy like that. And then
how it will loop back unless
it'll just loop back to you.
That's why I think that I feel like this season as a whole is kind of so the sacred timeline's the Ouroboros basically, right? So it's like leaning back into itself. Yeah. I think that this season is it breaking fully. I feel like we're not going to actually get like a resolution at the end of the season. It might leave it open-ended, you know, definitely like last season and stuff. But it's going to be that it's broken crazy. And that these branches are expanding without like it chaotically, and then that's basically MCU going forward, you know, which is basically what we got with season 1, but like this is, I don't know, it's kind of just showing us a little more of the behind the scenes of it.
Totally. It's gotta continue to get worse. Because right. And it's not gonna get fixed in a Disney Plus show. It's gonna get fixed in an Avengers movie, right? So it's like it's only gonna get worse. It's not gonna get fixed, and they're probably gonna like stabilize it for a bit. But then like the next threat is gonna be that like all these Kang variants are now actually making their move now that everything's stabilized. You know what I mean? Or something like that. You know what I mean? So it's just gonna lead to like more chaos in the end, which is gonna maybe lead into another season, or it's going to lead into the Avengers movie. It's gonna be dope. We already know. So OB mentions there's a ton of radiation out there while they're trying to discuss this plan in order to fix this time loom. And Mobius thinks that it's a great idea if Loki goes up there, and it's just sad that he's gonna have to just hustle. So, I just thought that was hilarious.
That was one of my favorite scenes. Yeah, it looks like you. That's got your shape.
Yeah. Then so it's like it's got a mask on. It could be anybody.
Yeah.
It's a suit. So we all like suspected that like what Victor was grabbing from the lab was a time chair when we saw it, like a miniaturized version of the time chair. When we saw that in the last episode, turns out it is actually a throughput multiplier stabilizer.
Right.
So, wow.
Well, I think that's kind of it's probably so like what I think of a throughput multiplier. Like throughput is like how much you can push through in some like process, and multiplier is like, you know, expanding it that throughput. That's basically creating energy, I think, is what that device does. It like literally you can take one stream of things and not only stabilize it into others, but like it probably multiplies it into like more functionality, you know. And so maybe that's like what all of his other tech is kind of based around of, is that like energy source. I feel like that is probably akin to what they're trying to get at with, like, you know, he is a Kang. He's smart enough to make things, but he's from the 1890s.
Exactly. He doesn't have the means. And the other confusing part. Yeah, that was a good way to explain what that device was. And then the other confusing part that we're going to try to explain to you is what he meant by Loom's temporal decay outpaces the multiplier's throughput capability. That's a lot of words.
Yeah,
in a
that I
name.
remember that line.
A
That
lot.
was definitely a lot of like exposition, like XYZ.
Yeah. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I think what that means is, if they put that thing in there, it's not gonna work because the temporal decay is gonna basically eat through like all of the metals that's within the what they're trying to implement. Correct? You know what I mean?
Well, I think
Like it's not
the metal.
it's gonna like time is gonna pass faster than how it can work because it needs to be stabilized.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
I think the metals of the device that they made itself will be okay because like that's I think what we see in
Okay.
the end of the episode is that just Victor spaghettifies, and I think he just drops the loom. But then like yeah, what you're saying is that even if they get it up in there and shoot it up, it's not going to be like fast enough to keep up with the time decay.
Exactly.
Which means that it was basically too late. Like if they had gotten it in earlier, maybe it would have worked.
Right.
And maybe they wouldn't be spaghettified if they went out there. They would have, decayed. Like Mobius did that first time, maybe a little more.
Yeah. Dude, what?
I'm wondering if like I know that like so like they turned off the magic guard thing. Like could
Yeah.
one of the Loki variants like survive better out there if because they're like gods, or I guess it'd probably
Dude, I don't
spaghettify
think
them
so.
too.
I
So there's
think
like
time
really
is
no
just
way.
Time is just such a how do you put it? Time is just such a
Abstract.
powerful thing.
Yeah.
Powerful abstract thing that like it doesn't even matter. You know, like these are gods on a miniature level compared to like the god of time throughout the entire universe. Like
Yeah.
the essence,
Multiverse.
which is what infinity is. You know,
Right.
like there's eternity and there's infinity. We saw eternity in Thor: Love and Thunder, and infinity represents eternity is the vastness of space, like the
Right.
space itself, and infinity is time.
It's like the
So like
multiples of
yeah,
everything in the
and like that in itself is way more powerful than just the god of mischief. You know what I mean?
right.
Like no matter what he does, it's not gonna work unless he has like some sort of armor that protects him from time, which makes no sense because still time would definitely kill it.
Dude, that makes me think of that one line though when he and Sylvie are arguing in front of the pies, and how he's like, or she's like, "Oh, that's like we're playing gods," and he's like, "We are gods."
Oh yeah.
But
right?
like, I liked how I can't remember which YouTuber said this, but like, the camera angle is super zoomed out, so they're super small on the screen. So it's like we are gods,
Totally.
but they're like minuscule. You know, like what are they even
Right.
gods of in this scenario?
They're gods of mischief, but those are, you know, like
Yeah,
if you think of
against time
mischief-
itself.
think of mischief, and then think of, oh, time is constantly happening. So it's just like mischief, a little bit of mischief happens over long periods of time. Time is always happening. The vastness of time compared to the amount of mischief that happens. Anyways, we're getting too technical. Dude, when Ravana and Miss Minute killed everybody.
That was the
That's
darkest Marvel has been besides like the snap, but that's
Literally.
like, more magic-y. This was like, oh my god, it's like
Dude,
you're just
it's-
smushing them, man.
The only reason why it felt so much more like dark is because of the fact that Miss Minutes was just so happy about it.
She was fucking
Like she was just like jumping around, like
giddy
she
with
was
excitement.
so excited. She was like so excited to see everybody pop. I was just like, dude, What the heck? But yeah, it was very dark. Very dark.
Yeah, it made me. I didn't realize, before watching it like the second time, like that whole room is made for that. Like they bring that
Yeah.
machine in there. They got the grate on the ground for
Yep.
like the stuff afterwards, and
Yeah, exactly.
and yeah, so like that's just like regular day, sort of corporal punishment,
Yep.
death
How many
penalty.
people have they squeezed out of existence? That's crazy. X5 is just standing there and he's just like, I can't even look.
I
And then
really,
B-15 goes in there later and she's just like, holy
yeah, dude.
crap.
Oh my god! And then if you in that scene, you can like hear like dripping and stuff.
Yeah,
It's
still
so
like
disgusting.
dripping down. Oh my god.
I really liked how
Yeah, I bet you
they use the music really building up when they're pointing in at Ravonna and Miss Minutes and
Yeah.
X5, because it was definitely just like you're looking at the horror on his face or whatever and the glee on the others, and
Yeah.
the music's just
Yeah.
really building and you're just like, oh my god, and then it stops when it's
Holy
done.
crap. Yep. Oh, they
That
know
was
how to like
perfect.
get you locked in. So then after this moment, X5 and takes Victor from the hot cocoa machine. And also, did you notice that like I didn't notice this on my first watch, but watching it back, the hot cocoa machine was right as they got off the elevator.
Yeah, they walk right by it before.
I didn't notice that the first time, but I thought that was funny. But yeah, they're just pruning everybody, man. They prune this poor dude. And
Which
then
so
take Victor.
yeah, so
What?
the pruning.
Go ahead.
They pruned him, and they got Ravonna, and previous Loki from like the other first episode.
Yeah.
So are they getting pruned back to the Sam Goliath field?
Yeah, I think so.
So like they're going to be in the next episodes for sure. Like there's going to be a whole like
If they can
secondary
get back,
plot sort of thing. I don't know. I feel like it's not the last we're going to see of Ravonna for sure.
yeah, definitely not. There's probably a Kang waiting for her there to pick her up. You know, like now I have her. She's gonna turn the tide for.
Oh yeah, he's gonna be like
war.
that went according to plan. You did great, and then
Yeah. So when they take Victor, Loki and Sylvie gotta go rescue him, right? So they replay all the scenes that we didn't see from the first episode when Loki was doing his time travel stuff. So we figured out that Loki was the one that pruned Loki, and we figured out all about who was on the phone, and it was no other than Ouroboros.
Yeah, that was a really cool scene because they kept switching between the two Lokis, and you couldn't really tell at first. But they're like, "Oh wait, that one doesn't have like the vest on or whatever."
Exactly.
And then he like
It was
slowly
awesome.
realizes that he's got to be the one to do it to himself, and it was just like, yeah, perfect.
It's like, oh heck yeah. And then they turn the magic back on, right? After
That
they
was funny.
rebooted Miss Minutes.
Which they didn't even use any.
No, they did.
When did they use?
They
the
used.
Oh yeah, just
They
Sylvie.
used just on X5.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but dude, when Miss Minutes was going out, man,
That
her
was
message.
terrifying.
You'll never be him.
This ties into my theory about it being another Kang pulling all the strings, man. Because like that whole thing, like you'll never be him, was pointed right at Victor, and so Victor's a variant or something. So it's got to be like, another Kang controlling Miss Minutes, who then leaves a final little message because he's so egotistical or something,
Totally.
But who knows? It could be anything at this point.
But also, why even leave the message if the guy's gonna die?
Right. Well, that's the thing. Is like he's got such an ego.
Yeah.
Is Miss Minutes dead then? Or because like she like rebooted it, but then she blipped out.
Yeah, right. And then the person who talked the next time it wasn't a Miss Minutes voice, it was a guy's voice.
Oh yeah.
Like whatever system that came back on was the dude's voice instead of Miss Minutes. So I don't know, man. Maybe Miss Minutes did get got.
Until she's created again, or whatever.
Right. Until that happens. Until the circle happens again. Yeah, let's talk about these last couple scenes. So like, dude, I feel so bad for what happened to this man. He was so right. He was like,
he was ready to be hero. He was like, time to be brave. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And we've been like,
I gotta be the one to do it. And I was like, well, yeah, it makes sense, dude. Like, you're the good guy. You're the good one. I was like rooting for him. I was ready.
We'd spent like 2 episodes like relating and learning more about him and stuff. How he's not evil yet or whatever.
Yeah. And then it was just.
Then it was. And he's dead.
That was pretty gruesome too, I would say.
I was so surprised, man. Because they do it in such a way that it was like the crescendo of the music, and then all of a sudden it cuts out, you know. And
I loved how, yeah, the crescendo with the music, but also like the sound design on his yell.
Yeah.
It's like a ah.
Ready?
Come on, let's go, let's go.
Come on, let's move.
Like it, like you like disappear. It's like you like I don't know. It's like his yell disappears.
It's like it reminded
body,
me of
you know?
like a computer. Like his voice file was like deteriorating as he got like explained it. It was like and then like lost some tone
exactly,
to it.
Exactly. Dude, that scene blew my mind.
Can you imagine if
like,
somebody else went
crap.
through though, or like Mobius went down again?
Man.
Oh no!
Yeah, that would have been it. And then the time loom exploded, and that was it.
You know, the visual of the explosion was a little confusing to me because it kind of looked like it was exploding from like the very left side. Like, I'll try to pull it up again so I can see, but like, it was just confusing about where the explosion started
I'm gonna
from.
do the same.
Yeah, it like does it from like the left of the loom.
So like, here's my thing about the loom. I've been trying to figure this out. Is the left side of the loom all the branches that are being created, or is the left side of the loom the raw time that's being sucked in?
I think the the left is it should be the raw time, but like,
yeah,
I think
that's what's been confusing to me. I can't figure out like, it's not very clear which way to me personally the loom is moving. You know what I mean?
Right. I suppose because during this explosion scene, that's at like the end of the TVA time, technically, right? Or like, because that was like after Loki pruned his previous self, who was jumping back and forth, you know. So this is like the farther point of that timeline. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. It is really confusing which side is which. Maybe those are branches, and they're just trying to suck in the branches harder.
Dude, yeah, I can't tell if it's like the raw time that's being sucked into the, you know what I mean?
And then the other side, I'm looking now, at least right when the explosion happens, it's not like, it's got a bunch of other strands and branches coming out the other side too. They're more controlled, but like, it's still not one total one, so maybe it is like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so I think it's the left side. So yeah, totally right. I think we're right. Oops,
It's just this moment is a bad indication because it's all blown up.
I think. No, I think we're right. I think since it's the left side that is exploding, it's the left side that's inputting the branches.
Right. Okay. So that's part that's like
And
overfilling,
also,
like a cup.
and also, maybe to simplify it even more, we all read left to right.
Yeah, that's probably what
So,
they're doing overall.
Makes sense.
They wouldn't confuse everyone like that.
Yeah. So yeah, the left side is the raw time. The right side is the branches being weaved. My thing is, why is there a loom? The loom is just for him to control time, right?
Yeah, to like condense it into that one sacred timeline.
Yeah. So like my thing is, what if that's not there? Like who cares, right? Like he's
Yeah,
the
that
one
would
that
be the
interfered
multiversal
with the
king
natural
shit.
law, right?
Right.
So like if it explodes, why would that be a problem?
Well, I think it's going to be such
Because
an explosion that it destroys the TVA
I mean,
and all that stuff. But
right, exactly. But I don't know, like, why would it be a problem for everything? Because of the explosion itself. It
because then
breaks
all the other
all
kings are going to
time.
be, available to wreak havoc. Because I think that
But they
was
already were once he got killed in the timeline.
that's where like I was saying before. I think this is kind of more a continuation of the collapse of the timeline. I think after this explosion, that's when all the other kings are released. And I think this whole season up to this point has just been kind of the immediate aftermath of killing He Who Remains and how it works. But then this moment is the actual part where, like, kings unleashed.
Okay. So what you're saying is, and let me double check myself. So what you're saying is, Loki right now technically is happening before, like this episode happens right before Ant-Man and the Wasp? Question mark?
Well, so in Ant-Man and the Wasp, isn't Kang still contained within? I feel like that Kang is separate from
Okay.
this.
Okay,
stuff.
yeah. So that Kang is the Kang that
That's
has
like
just
the
been living
full-on
outside
Kang.
of the entire timeline. Like he's been banished here from the last.
He probably had to
multiverse.
escape
So
this He Who Remains stuff by going into the quantum realm because the quantum realm
Yeah.
is separate from all the time stuff.
exactly. Yeah, you're totally yeah. And then all the Kang variants we see after that
That must have been right after
is
this
a result
happened, or
of after this. Yeah.
well, because
right.
this, as far as like the explosion goes, this has got to be a turning point in some part of like the timeline and stuff, Unless they just
Definitely.
completely reverse it in the next Loki episode, but I feel like this is going to be a turning point in general.
But so back to what I was saying, like the energy itself is what's gonna kill the TVA, but not necessarily the timeline.
That's what it
But
looks
they
like.
keep saying the dialogue has been that if they don't prevent this from happening, everything's gonna cease to exist. But my thing is, why would everything cease to exist just because this thing is not? Like, I understand the energy from it can make it cease to exist, but also at the same time, you can't just stop
Right.
raw time from existing. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, that
It
is
doesn't just
confusing.
stop.
I feel like maybe they mean just the TVA will cease to exist, but that
Sure,
also it
and
doesn't
maybe, like-
have. Yeah, it's a little iffy there too.
Yeah, and maybe like, maybe they're not thinking. They could.
Yeah, they don't really know what
thinking
happens.
about it the way we're doing.
They're just assuming that everything everywhere will explode because this is the way of life that they've done for eons or whatever.
Exactly. To me, it looks like there's a noose around time. Like, you know what I mean?
Right, exactly. This is like It's like a loom, in real life. That's how they take all the strands, of fabric and loom into a blanket or whatever else. And
Yeah.
that's constraining on the timeline. You got to let the timeline free, man. It's got to be
Dude, you gotta let the
loose.
timeline branch how it branches and not constrain it, and then there would be no problem.
Well,
But
we're
the
gonna have other
problem is
problems.
Kang. Problem is Kang.
Yeah, until Kang is contained, then I mean, after that, then the multiverse is just gonna
That
be
is fine.
the regular amount of chaos, which is just regular. It's not gonna be crazy, crazy.
Well, dude, so what were your overall thoughts of this episode?
Dude, I think this was the best Loki episode so far. It
Like, out
was.
of all of them?
I think so, man. I like the twists were so
damn.
crazy, and like the tone and
Yeah.
like build up to each thing was so good. There was a couple little slow parts
Yeah.
with like some of the dialogue at the beginning and stuff, but it was definitely like, it was really good. Anyways, so I thoroughly enjoyed it. Give it like a nine or so out of 10.
Dude, yeah, I would give it a good 9. It was slow. There wasn't as much action in slow as far as action. And but like, dude, sometimes you don't need that, man. I need the exposition, and I need the
Suspense
and I need the stakes, Like there's always the goofiness, There's like a
those
lack of
jokes were
stakes
hitting
in these
hard.
malls. They were hitting good this time. Yeah, they do that well. Like the balance of like joking and like keeping the stakes like high. Perfect. And like that's what they've been lacking lately as far as writing goes, in my opinion, on these Marvel movies. Like,
Yeah.
some lean in heavy goofy, some lean in heavy serious, some lean in some don't lean at all. I don't know. But yeah, overall, dude, strong episode, man, I think. And like we got answers to questions, questions to answers, and more questions, and yeah.
Can't wait for episode 5 because it's gonna pick up right off of a big explosion. So it's gonna be good.
Yeah. Oh, it's gonna be great. But hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, follow us on Instagram and TikTok. And yeah. Let us know what you think is gonna happen by the end of the season. How about that? Let us know what you think is gonna happen by the end of the season.
2 more
2
episodes
away. 2 more episodes away. What do you think is gonna happen? Predictions in right now, based off of the information right now. You've been listening to Nerds of the Round Table. Thank you for watching. Peace out.
Peace.